How's it going, lads? It's the Bald Boomer by Sparks. Today we're going to delve into why character progression in TBC is such an amazing and engaging player experience. After all, there is a reason why many of us choose to play Classic over Retail, whether it's for nostalgia, completing content that we didn't experience back in the day, or that we prefer the content and progression systems that it offers. Now, I'm not saying that TBC is a perfect game. There are definitely some aspects of gameplay that aren't good game design, but it does get many things right and it plays to those strengths very well. And remember, as always, you can make sure to catch me live on Twitch by following the channel. So what is it that allows the Burning Crusade to engage players at a deeper level that ultimately makes them feel more invested in their characters and progression? Well, there are two huge contributors to this, which are the element of choice and providing relevant content. When we look at choice, giving players the power to choose how they would like to progress their character is such a powerful tool because it gives players more control over what kind of progression they would like to take. Now, many of us instantly think about endgame content and raiding, and while this is a big aspect of the game, once you start to peel back the layers of the Burning Crusade, you can actually see it goes much deeper. Let's start on our character's first journey into Outland. The game intrinsically offers players three main choices as you progress to level 70, which are questing, dungeon runs, mob grinding, or a mixture of all three. Now, putting the debate of which of those is the most efficient to one side, all of them are perfectly viable ways to reach level 70, but the important thing is that TBC actually allows this element of choice to begin with. Questing is the most traditional route where players will enter the Dark Portal and experience the fairly linear questing path towards level 70, as well as begin to take in the story of each zone and become immersed in the world of Outland. If players follow the questing choice, they'll witness the Alliance and Horde forces bolstering their foothold in Outland in the shadow of Hellfire Citadel, and their continual struggle against Illidan's fell orc army powered by Magtheridon's demonic blood. In Zangarmarsh, they'll experience the plight of the Cenarian expedition, trying to hold back the destruction of its ecosystem at the hands of Lady Vash, who commands her loyal Naga soldiers deep within her subterranean base of operations in Serpent Shrine Cavern. In Terakar Forest, players will be introduced to Shattrath City under the watchful protection of the Naru Adal, as well as witness atrocities of Kel'Thas's forces developing mana bombs to wipe out a Cenarian expedition outpost, and later on explore the mysteries of Orkindun under the tight grip of the Shadow Council and its fanatical followers. Nagrand will reveal the leftover beauty of original Draenor, with rolling green fields and hills where the true orcish roots of the Mag'har resisted demonic corruption, as well as the broken Draenei of Kurenai and their daily struggle for survival. Blade's Edge Mountains introduces players to the Ogre clans in constant conflict with each other, vying for the support and favour of their Grandmasters, led by Gruul the Dragon Slayer. Netherstorm reveals the seat of Kel'Thas's power in Tempest Keep, and the powerful magic he's been storing for his nefarious plans ready to be unleashed upon the denizens of Azeroth. And finally, Shadowmoon Valley shows how the twisted magic of Gul'dan devastated the land, as well as being introduced to one of the original Death Knights, Teron Gorefiend, and how the Horde and Alliance bases are preparing to lay siege on Illidan's seat of power, the Black Temple, to finally bring the Betrayer down and free Outland from his rule and his Illidari cronies. Even though 5 expansions later in Legion, we find out he's actually the good guy all along, and he just has some crazy messiah complex to be the single one to bring down the Burning Legion. But hey, that's just Blizzard storytelling for you. In any case, all these zones provide the player with lore to absorb, experience to level up, items to increase in power, as well as reputation and gold, which incentivizes the player to continue in their questing path. Secondly, dungeons give players another choice of progression. As soon as a player enters a dungeon, they'll realise that you earn reputation alongside an excellent amount of experience on top of the usual dungeon items and good gold generation. This method helps players gear up, gain levels, as well as earn their way into heroic dungeons down the line, with the added bonus of extra gold from quests at max level. And lastly, the more niche choice of mob grinding. There are lots of spots in Outland to grind mobs that drop valuable items such as moats, or those that can advance your reputations with certain factions. On top of a steady stream of experience and gold, you can also do quests after at max level for bonus gold, which gives this choice some more rewards. So why do these various ways improve the leveling progression? Because it gives you as a player the freedom to choose which path you'd like to take, or even a mixture of all these paths. TBC caters to many different types of players that prefer different ways of progressing to level 70, and it always gives you, the player, complete control of how to fulfill your goals. This is something which sadly is not present in Retail World of Warcraft, as players are mostly just guided along a set path by the developers towards the endgame content and ultimately locked into whatever system Blizzard has designed for that particular expansion, be it Azerite, Covenants, and so on. So what about endgame content? Again, TBC delivers this very well because you as a player have an option to choose what you want to engage in. If you choose to be part of a raiding guild, you would be in a smaller environment of 10 or 25 compared to the 40-man raids in Classic, meaning that each and every member of the raid had a significant impact on the raid's success. As a player, you knew that if you stepped out of Shade of Aran's Flame Wreath, or if you were too close to other people when Gruul cast his Shatter ability, then you could possibly wipe the raid. So overcoming individual responsibilities and everyone playing their part as a collective to overcome challenges set before you provides you with an intrinsic satisfaction that you played your part in something bigger alongside the opportunity to earn some better items. If a player wanted to pit their skills against other players in the arena, then they could team up with their friends and battle it out for some top tier items and ultimately the prestigious title of Gladiator, which is another system with its own built-in progression that it was clear to understand. And then there's other small scale content such as heroic dungeons, which provide a decent aspect of challenge which reward badges of justice, as well as battlegrounds where you can earn honour and marks as a currency to spend on items as and when you earn them rather than wait for a weekly reset to see if you've made progress in your ranking. So how do these activities give the player control? Well, when you look at these progression systems, they overlap in many ways to continue improving your character. Let's take a very typical example from Classic. There are two ways where you can earn better gear, which is to either have an item drop in a raid, so you have to hope the dice rolls in your favour, or you have to endure the grueling rank 14 grind, and even then, with the way people could break brackets while they're ranking, it also takes away control from you as a player to progress your character. However, in TBC, this is a completely different case. Let's say a raider is looking for items to replace some lackluster gear, but unfortunately nothing has dropped in a raid. They have other avenues in which they can obtain upgrades in the meantime to continue progressing their character. For example, a player knows that if they obtain 41 badges of justice, they will gain access to a new trinket, some of which are actually their best in slot. So the player can actually plan and calculate how and when they are able to earn a new item with a clear reward structure that the game provides by presenting the player with clear objectives such as gain revered with a certain faction to gain access to heroic dungeons, and then they can start earning their items with badges of justice. Another clear example in Classic is how weapons are so hard to come by. I myself went from a Visk Hag in phase 1 and didn't get a new replacement until Gressel in phase 6. I didn't really have any control over when I would get an upgrade. It would either drop or it didn't. However, in TBC, this isn't something that I'm worried about at all, because if I ever need a weapon, I know I can use the arena point system to gain access to some high quality weapons, which will help my character immensely in whatever content I choose to do. And again, all I would need to do is calculate how many points I earn in a week to figure out how long it would be until I earn that reward. So again, the aspect of control comes to light where the player is able to make a conscious choice and work towards something that will help them progress their character, rather than being left at the mercy of random number generation. And lastly, there are many players that enjoy making gold through their professions, which require recipes. However, many of these can be bought through the use of earning reputations with certain factions, which is another clear example of incentivizing the player to take control of their own progression and give them a clear goal that they can work towards. So I think I've made it quite clear how TBC provides players with much more control over their characters that ultimately leads to a more fulfilling experience. Now, the second aspect of what TBC does amazingly well for progression is ensuring the content remains relevant throughout the expansion, which is something retail doesn't really do anymore, since the next major patch generally makes old things obsolete and mostly useless outside of vanity or transmog. So how does TBC keep content in the game relevant? Well, for what may seem as a very complicated problem, it's actually solved with a very basic principle. The reward structures and the systems in TBC progress alongside with the content. Let's look at PvE content first. As the content progresses from tier 4 to tier 6, it's very easy to think that all the previous content would be made obsolete since the items pale in comparison to what the current tier offers. However, one simple system keeps aspects of phase 1 of TBC relevant throughout its entire life cycle. Badges of Justice. Once Zulaman is released in phase 4, Karazhan bosses are updated to also drop Badges of Justice. A full clear of it will provide 22 of them, which is the most players can find in a given spot. Not only this, but the items that can be bought with Badges of Justice continually progress throughout the phases so that players will always have an incentive to do previous content like Karazhan or Heroic Dungeons, which by the time Sunwell Plateau and Isle of Kel'Danas are available, you can buy a huge range of items including PvP items, epic quality gens, and PvE items that are around tier 5 equivalent. Now when we look at PvP content, we have the Arena and Battlegrounds, which are grouped from seasons 1 through 4. Again, TBC keeps the Arena and Battlegrounds intrinsically linked as the seasons progress by providing players with the offset pieces only available with honor points and battleground marks, which incentivizes players to continually return and access that content all the way throughout TBC's lifecycle if they want to keep with the concurrent gear to PvP. If everything was just bought through the Arena point system, then Battlegrounds would be a graveyard. On top of this, having Battlegrounds also reward Season 1 Gladiator gear during Season 2 and so on, lowers the barrier of entry of new players or alts that want to participate in the arena so that they aren't at such a huge disadvantage. You may remember the meme back in the day was to call them welfare epics. However, I do believe this is a good system that's put in place, since a player still has to put in the work and farm their honour points before they can make a competitive step up in the arena. Ultimately, it still maintains a barrier of entry for players to play competitively, it's just not a huge one so that new players are not discouraged from doing so. So as you can see, these progression systems are nowhere near as complicated as what we have in retail World of Warcraft. They're actually very simple in design, but whether it was dumb luck or a stroke of genius from the original developers of the Burning Crusade, it was how they executed it that constantly gave players some kind of goal, objective, or incentive to work towards something that they could use to progress their character outside of the typical method of completing raiding content. And when I think objectively about why the Burning Crusade was the best expansion for me, it really always comes back to the fact that the game always incentivized me to work for something and give me that feeling of satisfaction of delayed gratification because I put in the time and effort to achieve a goal that I had set out to complete, rather than rolling the dice on some weekly chest. So if you haven't experienced the Burning Crusade before or are returning back to Outland as I am, you're definitely going to have a great time with your characters in a wonderfully executed progression system. And that is all for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. This is the Bald Boomer by Sparks, signing out. Catch you lads next time.